Okay, so talked about human formation, which was the ability to recognize others' needs and the ability to know how we can help meet those needs. And then the spiritual formation had to do with recognizing our priestly identity as victims for the sake of the people, right? So the other two are pastoral and intellectual. So I'm leaving intellectual for the last, even though it's not the most important. I'm leaving it for the last because it feeds into the rest of the videos. But for the next one, I'm going to do pastoral formation. So pastoral formation has to do with being able to apply all of those principles that you learn about in the other areas of formation for the sake of others, right? So as in the spiritual formation, we learn about how one is a victim for the sake of others. In pastoral formation, we learn how we can do that at a practical level. So it might have to do with even things as basic as learning how to, like listening skills, or it might have to do with knowing how to discern different needs that spiritual needs that somebody might have, right? And learning how to be able to pick those out and give the right advice, right? Recognize the signs of the times. What are the problems that people are going to be facing, right? The problems that we have today aren't the same problems that we had maybe 50 or 100 years ago. So that all flies into pastoral formation, which is more of a practical application of all those things. So that's pastoral formation. And we have classes in pastoral formation. We have workshops and things like that. And then for intellectual formation. Okay, so this one's the one that gets the most attention, right? Because it's kind of like the most, well, first of all, because we have papers to write, we've got tests to take and all that kind of stuff. So it gets a lot of attention just because of that. We spend a lot of time in classrooms, right? So it gets a lot of attention just because of that. But it's not the most important. The academics aren't the most important. And intellectual formation isn't only about academics, right? Academics is only a part of intellectual formation. But intellectual formation is basically the ability to, developing the ability to think critically about the things that are going on and knowing what resources to pull, what principles to pull from our academic formation, right? So, so this means that intellectual formation in the seminary has to do with studying dogmatic theology. It has to do with studying biblical theology. It has to do with all the different parts of theology that are studied, sacramental theology, and so on and so forth. And the problem is that after seminary, priests don't have tests and papers to write anymore. Most priests, right? Most priests are taking care of parishes and those kinds of things. And so the intellectual formation loses a lot of its emphasis after seminary. And so the trick is to be able to continue developing the intellect, continue education, and those kinds of things. So that's basically what intellectual formation is. At an academic level, the areas that we study, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, but the areas that we study from Scripture, right? So that's scriptural theology or biblical theology. We study dogmatic theology. So these are the dogmas, the actual pronouncements of the faith. We study sacramental theology, and this has to do with the actual rites that we will be doing, but it also has to do with the significance of those rites and the significance of the sacraments and what sacrament is, right? And then what am I missing? Moral theology. Moral theology is another big one, and canon law, for instance, is closely related to moral theology. Moral theology used to fall under canon law, but now it's a separate subject matter. But moral theology is a very, very important one because this is basically morality is a way to facilitate our encounter with God, right? Not because morality in itself is an end, but because it allows us to facilitate our encounter with God. And then we take classes in pastoral theology and we take classes in, you know, we might take languages, certain languages, Latin or Greek or Hebrew, and things like that. So in the next videos, I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about some things that I have pulled from each of those broad subjects in my academic formation. So I'll see you around for that one. Thanks.